Okay, thank you. So let me share my screen. Just a second. Share. And then I go to this. Okay. So just to an overview of how I got to Patagonia, we went through the Panama Canal to Galapagos, to Easter Island, and then to Valdivia, and then finally we went down here, the next part. And so this, as I said before, we actually sailed a little bit in the northern part, but then we came back to do the whole southern part from Puerto Montt to Puerto Williams, and then we did a little trip around Cape Horn.
Sorry, Judith, have you shared your screen? Is it?
Yes, I have. Sorry.
So we can't see your screen at the moment.
Okay, let me just see what I'm doing wrong.
And don't forget to tick the video box, video optimization box.
I've done this before. Share. Oh, there we go. I have to choose the screen I want to share.
Yeah, that's better.
Is that better now? Yeah.
Yeah, much better.
Okay. And there. Yeah, so this was just to show that we did it from the western side because I'd read a lot about it, and it seems like it's much easier to go from north to south because you have most of the wind with you and most of the currents with you. So that's why we chose to go that way. We had a very nice sail there, and then we did a little bit of cruising in the northern Patagonia, and then we went down to southern Patagonia, which is what I'm going to talk about. So we went from Puerto Montt to Puerto Williams, and then we went around Cape Horn. And one of the things we said to ourselves after this trip was, wow, remember when we thought 30 knots was a lot of wind? That was the nice days. So we had quite a bit of wind most of the time, but we had it with us. We had the current with us. So we actually did very good. So Seawind, who is on here today, they did it the other way, and we met them. And they did tell us that it's probably nicer to go from north to south because you then have the wind with you. So we spent 74 days doing this, and today I think that was too short. It is 1,716 nautical miles. And then we did a stop in Puerto Natales. It's sort of like a little detour, but it's a very nice detour, so we decided to do that. And so besides in these 74 days, there were 14 days where we were waiting for better weather, because sometimes the weather was interesting. 140 extra nautical miles to go to Puerto Natales. So we start off in Puerto Montt, which is very beautiful. They have several volcanoes around that are covered in snow, and Puerto Montt itself is kind of an interesting little town, big town maybe even, I'm not sure. But it's interesting because you'll see people riding horses for transportation in town, and we're not used to that up north. So we stayed in Angelmo. That's about where the marina is, a little bit north of this picture. And Puerto Montt has all these buildings where there's paintings on them, lots of little shops, and then painting on the shop fronts. And these three gentlemen to the left are some of the original people who lived in Patagonia. Not too many left of those. As a matter of fact, I think it's none by now. And here's Touché. Touché is, like I said, it's an island packet, 380. 38 foot. It's a very good size for the two of us. And what you can see in this picture is that it has 4 big laundry bins, 2 in the back and 2 in the front. And that's where we put the 400 meters of rope that you're supposed to bring along to tie yourself to land in places, because you can't always just anchor up. You have to maybe put the anchor down to hold your bow in that place, and then tie up so that, because you usually try to go in as close as possible to the trees into little bays so that you'll be protected, and then you use the rope so that, because there won't be any swinging room. So first, of course, you have to do some provisioning, and Håkon is very fond of chocolate, and he wanted to make absolutely sure that he wasn't running out of it. And we did a lot of this by bus. And then finally we had to go to the Armada and get the permission to sail through Patagonia. When you get that permission, you also promise that you will check in every morning and tell them where you are, where you plan to go, when you plan to be there. And when you get there in the evening, you write again. In this day and age, you use satellite telephone. It used to be radio with the radios, the old amateur radios. And so then in the evening, you also write and say, we are now here. And that is not always the place you said you would go in the morning, because on the way you might find out that that maybe that the first choice wasn't so good. Maybe you just felt like you had a really good sail and you wanted to go a little further. And maybe even you found out that that choice wasn't any good, and then you went to another one. So basically, every day we had like 3 anchorages that we wanted to get to the next day. One that we preferred, and 2 others for bailouts if you needed that. And then, yeah, so those are the main rules. You're also supposed to only sail at daylight, and then you can't fish in certain areas because of red tide. Very nice people, the people in the Armada, and when you write them, they're always very courteous. And another thing is, if you pass a lighthouse that's manned, then you also call them up and tell them who you are, where you're going, and yeah, the general information about your boat. You will, of course, we had also AIS, so of course they can also follow us in AIS. I think it's kind of a safety feature that if they don't hear from you in several days, then they might think that something happened, and then they'll know just about where you are. We did one morning sleep late because it was one of the times when we were staying in the same anchorage. So we were sleeping late. And then I got a mail saying, Matt, I think you have forgotten to mail us today. So I immediately apologized and sent them a mail and where we were, and because they prefer to get that morning mail around 8 a.m. So here we are. Håkon that one roll of rope is 200 meters, and so you just divide it in 2. And we thought those laundry baskets worked very well. They did work very well in Patagonia, but actually once we sailed up along the Brazilian coast and it got warm and sunny, then they just disintegrated because it just got very brittle. But they worked very well for the part in Patagonia. So here we are, we're getting ready. We have provision. We're sort of waiting for the best day to leave. And we're sitting up in the clubhouse watching the strait between the island and Puerto Montt. And this big green boat you see to the right, suddenly weather comes in. It suddenly starts blowing very much, and this big green boat decides to go for a walkabout. So all of a sudden, it's almost over to the boats, and nothing actually happened. Very few. We saw one boat with some bent stuff, but no real damage. But the piers got quite damaged, and actually here they're lying down, but they were actually standing up perpendicular because they just got blown over. Anyways, we decided, well, we better get going because this is not too safe to place. The boat was fine. We weren't in the way. So we decided to go the next day. And we got to this anchorage. And as you see, the weather here was very different from what it was in Puerto Montt. It was beautiful sunshine, very, very calm. And we just enjoyed a really nice night at anchor there. As you can see, what they do there to moor their boats in the daytime is that they pull them up on land because of the tide. Then when the tide goes out, they can go out again. And so we're sailing along. This is still in the northern part. And in the northern part, most of the time you can see the volcanoes with the snow on top. It's very pretty. And we went to this nice, you go into this long estero, and then at the end there was a church and a churchyard, and there was also a house, but we actually didn't see any people there. But it was a very nice and sheltered place. I actually think that in most of Patagonia, you can always find a nice sheltered place. Of course, what you do have with you is you have the Bible, as they call it. It's called the Blue Bible. It's called the Italian Bible. It's the pilot book that two Italians, that's also called the Italian Bible. And so two Italians wrote this book about all the information they had about all the anchorages. They're not all in there, but there's a whole lot in there. You can always find a nice anchorage to plan for. As a matter of fact, during COVID, because I couldn't get down there as I wanted to, I read through most of that book and I sailed through most of Patagonia, but just online and just in the book. Very quickly, we saw penguins, which I was very happy. I thought we had to get further south to see them, but they were way up here. And then the weather, of course, changes. As the saying goes, if you don't like the weather, wait a little while because it'll change. And if you like it, just enjoy it while it's there. So you get rain, you get wind. As you can see here, there's a big squall coming down, but they also leave fast, so it was no real big problem. We were going to stay in this anchorage, but decided not to because it was too open and the wind wasn't just right for it. So that's one of the times we went to another anchorage. And we'd heard about Puerto. I think it was Jorge who told us about this. He said it's a real nice place. And we kind of thought, oh, we'll go in there. In the book and on the map, you don't really see there's anything there. So I thought we can just anchor up. Then we get in there and there's boats all over the place. There's people all over the place. It's not very easy to find anchorage. So this guy comes out in his skiff, the skiff lying next to Touché down here. He comes out, he goes, come over here. You can lie here at my bridge. So we just tied up there, and then he said, do you want some fish? And then he brought some frozen fish down to us, and it was just very, very nice man. This, of course, all is in Spanish, which I had spent most of COVID learning. Not very good Spanish, but the Chileans are very patient and very nice when you're sort of murdering the language. So this place, there's no cars there. It's all boardwalks of wood. And it turned out that Juan here, he was actually from East Island. So he had a big East Island flag. So that was kind of nice for us to see that. And we had a good time together. And we spent, I think, 2 nights there. This is just and I didn't take this, but somebody else took this picture, and you can see sort of where the town is on different islands here. So we go on, and next day the clouds are very, very low, but it's dry, so that's nice. And we saw a lot of pelicans. And then we get to this nice anchorage, which is completely calm. We didn't even bother putting out ropes because it was very calm, and the weather forecast was also for very calm. We had the general feeling that when the weather forecast was less than 10 knots, then it was true. If it's more than 10 knots, we had to add something because then it was usually lots more. I don't really know what happens for that 10 knot going there. But anyways, we're right there. And finally, we get to Islas Beaches. Oh, somebody's going to know I'm not pronouncing that right. There's actually a little tiny marina there for like 6 boats. And it's very nice. And then it's sort of one of the last places you can actually do some shopping, get a few things that you didn't get enough of in Puerto Montt. And Håkon decided that he needed to do a little extra maintenance. And in that little marina, there's a little little clubhouse that you can go to. There's a kitchen, you can make yourself a cup of tea. There's nice warm showers, so you don't make your boat all wet. And it's just a really nice place with books you can read. And we were really happy to be there. It was a great place. And we were actually there for a few days because it was flat calm and we really didn't want to start motoring right away. So we decided to just enjoy the place and have a look around. It's definitely a very beautiful place. Oops, that was supposed to be a video. Oh, crap. That worked when I was checking this. It's not working now. Sorry. Anyways, it's a really beautiful place. And after that, we had been in contact with Seawind, and we were kind of, we had decided that we had to meet somewhere, but we didn't know where we would be. They were waiting for a weather window to go up north over Gulf of the Penis, and we were just sort of working our way towards that. So it turned out that we met in Estero Clemente, where they had gotten a good weather window going north. And since they had a good window going north, it was not a good window for us to go south. So we stayed in this anchorage and met up with them and had a really good time spending time going, oh, which anchorages did you go to in the south that we hadn't been to? And we could talk about the places we had been to in the north. And so that worked out very well. And we had a really fun time. Meeting each other. They're Swedish, we're Danish and Norwegian, so this is a very Scandinavian meeting. It's a beautiful place. Lars and Suzanne told us, oh yeah, there's a path, you can get up to that waterfall you could see up there. So, oh, all right, we'll go for that. And I'm not really sure where that path was. I'm not really sure we found it, but we did make it up to the waterfall. It's kind of a jungle when you go ashore. But the view you get once you get up there is definitely worth it. As you can see, there's also tidal here, and there's a lot of, it's low water here, as you can tell. And that made for some interesting tiny problem for Håkon. Well, me too, actually, but because now the dinghy is way up on land and we had to carry it quite a bit out before they got water enough to actually float it back to the boat. But it worked, of course. Simon, I see that there's a lot of chats. Is there anything I should answer to?
So Tim Good is asking, what was the name of the town again?
Which one? One I couldn't pronounce.
Probably, yeah.
Las Huichas.
Okay.
Huichas. Yeah, I can write it down.
Yeah, we'll maybe come back to that one when we open up the microphones at the end of the meeting. Somebody's asking how cold it was, temperature-wise.
It's not too cold. As you can see, Håkon is pretty much in a, well, maybe like fall clothes or something like that. I don't recall the temperature, but I think it was, well, when we were in Las Huichas, it was definitely in the 20s, actually. Around here, I think it's maybe 10 degrees, maybe 15 degrees, something like that.
Yeah.
It wasn't terribly cold.
So there's also a question about where Seawind had come from, but maybe we can take that after when we'll open up the mic for
Seawind came from the south.
Yeah.
They did the opposite of us. They came from Puerto Williams going to Puerto Montt. So they were on their way north and we were on our way south.
But we'll come to the questions afterwards, so Judith. So carry on, please. Yeah.
Yeah. So here's the weather the next day. It's completely flat, calm. Maybe not a good idea to go motoring all the way across Gulf of the Penis, but actually it wasn't quite that nice outside. This is way in the bottom of this estero, and it was very nice and calm there. But according to the weather forecast, it wasn't that nice outside. And also, this is what we got the next day: fog and rain. So it was okay to spend the next day just sitting in the boat, baking some bread, having Lars and Suzanne over, and just relaxing. Anyways, finally, there's time to go. So we are right here now at the bottom of this screen. And we have to go out now to Gulf of the Penis and cross that. And that is notorious. I think Gulf of the Penis means Gulf of Pain or Gulf of something. And if you get the wrong weather window there, I do believe it can be a Gulf of Pain. So we were really hoping for a good weather window. We had planned for a couple of bailouts. The only problem with those was if we did use one of those, we would go way into an estero or fjordo, and then we would have to go out again in maybe western wind. So it would be kind of fun to get out. But anyways, we got actually a nice weather window, fairly calm sea. We had the wind behind us. It was great, no problem. We could cook everything. And then we got to this very nice anchorage just on the other side. This was also where we met our first lighthouse. So we talked to the lighthouse keeper, and he was very nice and said, well navigated. And that made us happy, of course. Makes me happy. So anyway, so we get there, and then we had actually planned to maybe stick around in that area a little bit. But the weather forecast was showing things that we didn't like to see. So we decided to go down Canal Messia, which is a big wide canal. And you can see already now, the wind is actually picking up quite a bit, and so are the waves because it's so wide. Where is that? Okay, sorry. So anyway, so we get down to this Caleta Yvonne, which was very nice. It was actually quite wild, like you saw in the previous picture on the outside. But once we get in here, as you can tell, it's very calm. We have backed in as much as we felt comfortable doing, and then we are tying ropes to the trees. And one thing we learned afterwards was, we'll see if the video works. I don't know why it doesn't work. So because the weather was kind of crummy out there, we just stayed there for 2 days. As you can tell, in there it was fine. There was no problem. We had no wind. When we walked over the little isthmus to the other side, we could definitely tell there was a lot of wind on the other side. And we also saw snow on the mountains the next morning. I'm sorry, there's definitely some videos that are not working. Maybe I can show them afterwards. So after we had stayed there, I think 2 nights and waited for nicer weather, we wanted nice weather to go up to Seno Iceberg because that's where we would meet the southern ice cap first. And I really like ice and snow, so I wanted to go there on a nice day. And we did get up there on a nice day. And as you can tell, though, the ice has retreated quite a bit. When you looked in the book, the ice was all the way down to the water. It's not anymore. It's retreated, as they have most places. Everywhere we went, every single Caleta, anchorage, wherever we went, we had dolphins either following us in, meeting us in the side, or coming later. We always saw dolphins all the time. There were so many of them. It was unbelievable. There was a radio station supposed to be in this place, but it was completely abandoned. There was nobody there. So basically we just continued on after we had sort of been ashore and seen if there was any. We tried to call them, of course, but nobody answered, and there was absolutely nobody there. So the next point is where you get to the first actual little place, sort of a town in Puerto Eden or Eden. And we did check, we did see apple trees there. So there are apples in Eden. Again, this is a kind of town where there's no roads. There's only these boardwalks and stairs, wooden stairs that you walk around on in town. It's a beautiful place. This is where we have followed the boardwalk all the way up to the top. And we're anchored down there. It's nice and sheltered, and you're fairly safe there. Jorge had been kind. We had a lot of help from Jorge, which is why I'm greeting him so warmly. So he said, yes, I know who you should contact to get diesel in when you get to Puerto Eden. And So we were in contact with them on WhatsApp before we left, of course, and then we couldn't be in contact until we got there. It was actually a small phone signal there, which was a surprise. So as you can see, they're taking the diesel from their blue cans and then putting them into our yellow cans. And they were there very quickly after we got there, I think by Jorge's help. And so we got the diesel we needed filled up so that we would have hopefully enough for the rest of the trip. We met some people there. There was a guy from New Zealand who lives there now. And so they said, oh, well, if you want to have a shower, you can come up to our house and we can have dinner together. Well, great. We actually thought we wanted to buy some stuff for the dinner, but all we could find was potatoes. So that's all we contributed. So after dinner, they said, well, tonight is music night. And then they stuck me with a drum and said, this is yours. You should be happy that there's no sound in this one because I did my best, but I'm not sure it was very good. But it was very fun and nice evening to have. After we left there, we came to this very nice place, one of the places where it was easy to go ashore and to take a walk up and look around. It's not always as easy to get ashore because some places almost like jungle and it's really not easy to get into anywhere. But here it was nice. And there was a lot of these birds. I'm sorry, I forgot what they're called. But it was a very pretty place and it was, again, completely calm. When we felt very sure that there wasn't going to be any wind overnight, we just anchored up and then didn't bother tying up to shore. The next stop was Puerto Montt Glacier, which is like 3 kilometers wide, and I'd really look forward to see this one. It's, as you can see maybe in the picture, it doesn't actually go all the way down to the water. It's now grounded, and there's a tiny little bit of sandy ground in front of it. So of course I had to get in the dinghy and get in closer to look at the ice. Here it's very clear. It's also very clear that we are at low water at this point, and it's also very clear where the high water mark is. Then you go around the corner into Caletas, and that's also a very beautiful place. We weren't too sure about the weather there, so as you can see, we have at least 2 ropes out. This is also a place where I wanted to take a trip in the kayak. I actually also did that in Las Huichas. But so we have this track kayak on board. It's a fold skin on frame kayak that we try to use in different places. Since I went out alone, I only went out when it was really flat water and nice weather. This is where we saw the first, oh, I know what they're called, I forgot. Kingfisher, very pretty bird, very hard to photograph. So we spent the night here, baked some bread. You can take a lot of provisions with you, but bread is one of the things that you need to bake along the time. We had provisioned for about 3 months because you don't know exactly how long you're gonna spend. And we had plenty of food left over. Fjord of Håkon is a side fjord to the big fjord that goes up to Puerto Montt. And there was a big glacier there that had left a lot of icy bits in the water. And we got there on a beautiful, beautiful day, completely blue sky, very calm, and just really, really gorgeous. I went out in the kayak and dolphins came and thought they would play with the kayak and me. They didn't touch us or anything, but they did. I had two dolphins come from either side and diving under the kayak. That was a little bit unnerving, but it was fine. So we're going now down Canal wide. And so this is also where we saw our first fishing boat. There are fishing boats around all the time, but we didn't see many of them. Basically, we saw nobody, but we did see this fishing boat. And then we found this very nice anchorage. And the next morning when we woke up, there was a lot of ice bits in the water because the glacier across Canal Wide had apparently calved during the night and left all these icy bits in the water. At first it looked a little iffy, but it was actually easy enough to get through. You just have to sort of wind your way in and out between the little ice bits. They're not that big. So we actually went to this one anchorage that was very interesting. The only one we met of all the ones we tried in Patagonia where it was really no good. So we had to go on, and that's when we came to this Caletas Refugium, which had a beautiful view and a beautiful calm sea, and we just had a really beautiful night there. Okay, so there was some other people we were meeting along the way. We had been in satellite mail contact with this other boat, and we found out that we were probably going to be meeting in Caletas Colibri. Also because I'd been told that there was 2 nice places to tie up in Colibri, and so that would be a good place to meet. And also it was a place where it looked like we were going to spend maybe 2 days to wait for slightly better weather. So here we are. It's really, really narrow to get in there. So you back in, which is not easy with a long keel boat, but it works. And then we put some ropes out on either side. I think we had 4 ropes here because we weren't quite sure what the weather was going to do, but it was fine. It was plenty. We actually didn't need the 4 ropes. But anyways, we did need them to not swing because there's definitely no swinging room here. And I guess seeing these flowers in the woods, there must be actual, they're not called colibris in English, are they?
I think they're called fuchsia, aren't they?
Yeah, the flower is called fuchsia, but the bird.
Oh, the birds, sorry, okay.
Yeah, anyways, so they must be there somewhere, but as you know, they're very small. We didn't really see them, but we saw some more kingfishers. And Håkon decided that he needed a little strip up the mast. And you can actually tell that above it's a little bit more windy than it is below. It was very calm below, but up there was actually a bit of wind. I forget what it was he was checking there, something. But anyways, it wasn't anything serious. We have a top climber we use when he goes in the mast. So here we are, the 2 boats. This is a picture I got from Håkon, who could then see that we were in the best anchorage, the one to the most bottom part of because that's the narrowest one. And then the Canadian boat that we're meeting were now in the other anchorage. So, okay, 2 boats meet in the place where you don't meet anybody else. And of course you have to get together. And thankfully we had invited them over because when they were to come over, it was raining. And so they were rowing over in the wind. But then we could offer pancakes and hot chocolate, and it was fun. It was nice to meet someone. Again, they were saying to us, you guys are doing it right. Coming from the south to north is just too hard. It must be so much nicer going from north to south, which we could just say it was. It was very nice. We could just enjoy the wind with us most of the time. I will say that after Canal Messier, we decided that we don't really need that at all. And the mainsail, maybe not so much anymore. Actually, we used the staysail the most because that was actually plenty sail. And sometimes we even had to reef that, but it worked fine. One of the birds that we thought was really interesting is this skua. So they would fly around the boat looking at you as if to say, that's a weird wing you have there. Is it sitting right? And then they would fly around the boat and he would land on the water. And then after a little while, as you sailed by, he would then get up again and take another around the boat. So apparently they were also a little bit lonely and wanted to see who we were. This glacier was very big, and we thought it would be very easy to find a good spot in there, but it wasn't actually. It was too deep in most places. And so we had a description of where we could anchor up, where it would be a depth that was manageable, but it was actually really difficult finding it. We did find, maybe not it, but we found some place where it was low enough for us to anchor up. Now, this one is one that we really wanted to go to. Like I said, we had like usually a choice of 3 every day and then decided which one we actually ended up with. But this one is the one we really wanted to go to because I'd read several of Tillman's book. And so here's this guy who's a mountaineer, and he decides, well, I'm not too good at climbing big mountains anymore, but there must be some mountains other places of the world that I can climb. And he decides for Patagonia, and he decides, well, it's probably best to sail there. Slight problem that he didn't know how to sail, but so he got somebody to go with him who could sail and somebody who could cook because he couldn't cook either. And so we really enjoyed reading his books. I can heartily recommend them. And so he was around in this area. We were right in the Caletas Tillman where he actually anchored up, but he also tried to go up some of these glaciers, and he went into a side canal, which was not very deep. And as far as I'm told, he did get grounded. Well, his crew did. He was up climbing with this other guy, and his crew got grounded because they didn't realize that they would maybe go as low as it did. And so the Chilean Navy came and helped them out of that little trouble. Anyways, it was really nice actually seeing the place that we had read about all the way there. And this day was maybe a little bit gray and drizzly. But, you know, still beautiful when you sail around, go to the ice and look at the ice. And then, of course, being that the weather down there changes very quickly, this is the weather we got the next day. It was just fantastic. It was completely flat calm, and I really wanted to stay there. But we were looking at our plans for where we could go the next day and the next day after, and we knew that at some point there was going to be some nasty weather coming, so maybe we should just get going. So we went the next day. I would have loved to stay 1 or 2 days more. And the next day we had completely, that's not what the weather forecast said, but we had completely calm, and the sea lions are playing in the water. There's lots of birds, and it was just this beautiful, it was a motor sail, but it was just so beautiful that we didn't even mind. And we saw so many dolphins there that it's unbelievable. Very, very beautiful day. And just to show what we do on days like this, of course, we have lunch at some point during the day. And being that it's kind of hard to get enough vegetables to go for 3 months, we were doing sprouts so that we got a little bit of green and beans at the same time. And yeah, so we had nice lunches most days. And as you can say, it's maybe slightly colder here. I can see that we have the tent up. So it's probably like 5 to 10 degrees Celsius. When I talk degrees, I'm talking Celsius, not Fahrenheit. So, but as you can tell, it's definitely a nice day. And then we got to this gorgeous Caleta, moonlight shadow. And as you can see, if you see way out there in the middle, I'm not sure if you can see my arrow, but you come in here and it's a very narrow entrance, and you just sort of do a few twists and turns. And then you end up in this nice big area where for that day we could actually just anchor out. But if you need to, you can go to the bottom of the picture. There's a place in there where you can just sneak your boat in and tie to the side, and you'll be perfectly fine. This was also one of the places that we could actually get up and look at. So So we were ashore, and then we had a beautiful evening. And as you can tell, it's not very cold here. We do have the tent up. We have an enclosure, which is very nice. But as you can tell, it's definitely not cold. And we decided to have a nice glass of wine this evening. We don't drink when we sail, and we don't drink much in the evening because, you have to sail next day. Maybe you have to get up at night and do something. So, but definitely had a beautiful dinner there. And this was the sunset that we got. You got to remember, when you sail there in our winter time, it's their summertime. So we're going towards summer here. This is in November, and it's just some beautiful days. So I have a little break to take the next one up. Do you think we should take some questions here?
Yeah, can do. Jorge's got a question in there. Jorge, do you want to open your microphone and ask it directly?
Is this shared now? Yeah, just a second. Oh, just a second. Just gotta get that. That's the one.
He's still muted, but he
Am I muted?
No, you're not muted.
Okay.
But Jorge comments that he probably told you that it was his father who was manning the captain of the Navy cutter that came to the rescue of Tillman's Mischief in 1956.
Yes,
hence the name of the boat.
Yeah, hence the name of the boat.
Is that the one where they took all the ballast out of the boat and rowed it ashore, all the pig iron ballast, and to try and float it off? Is that? I remember reading about that.
I think maybe it might be. Jorge would be able to answer that better than I can.
Yeah.
But I thought it was a nice story, and I like the point that his boat is then called Mischief, just like that one.
And you'll be following Mischief again when you get up into Greenland, of course, or following in the wake of Mischief.
Yeah. So that'll be nice for me. So somebody is saying that it's mainly motoring. Actually, it wasn't really. We did fine with the diesel we have. We have a diesel tank of 320 liters, I think it is. Maybe it's something like that. And it was full when we left Puerto Ideen, and of course when we left Puerto Montt. But we actually had quite a bit of diesel left at the end, so I'm not really sure whether. I'd have to look it up. So Chris Lobel, you maybe have to try and contact me, and I'll see if I can find my notes and see how much it was. Yeah, and there's the Martin Pescador, the Kingfisher, and Jorge saying Caleta Colibri is one of his favorite. It was a really, really nice anchorage. It's also one of the places I got my kayaks out, because even though the weather was a little crappy outside, it was very protected in there. Yeah, let's see, are there more? Oh, yeah, the Jakarta for the one. And the big red roof building in Puerto Eden, that is a school. That is true. There's only about 80 people living there. And somebody asked me what time of the year, and it was November, and we left Puerto Montt the October 8th and arrived Puerto Williams at December 13th. So let me see. Yeah, so Isla Huches is a town I thought I can't pronounce. I'm not really sure I'm doing it right, but maybe you can unmute Jorge afterwards. I'm sure he can pronounce it right. Sea wind entered Patagonia via Brazil. That's correct. Yeah, and you're right, Lester. When you go to Google Earth, it really is hard sometimes. And also, even if you get a satellite view, you just get not a very clear satellite view, but you do get a few things out of it. So, okay, is there anything else I'm missing?
No. Lars has just come in at the end saying going from south to north is mainly motoring. So
yeah, because you have to do it on the nice days when it's or you do a lot of tacking, which is I think tough. Okay, so I guess I'll go on now unless somebody has an urgent question.
Yeah, we'll take most of the questions at the end, Judith. So
Okay.
yeah, great.
So we are now up here in the top part of the red line, and we're on our way down to go to Puerto Natales, and then you can see the rest of our route. I'll talk more about that as we leave. Unfortunately, we had to do around Cape Horn this way instead of going around the whole island, but island Navarro, but you can't do that when you're not Chilean, because I guess there's some military stuff there. Okay. Now, why is that not moving? Right. So one of the things that we have also talked about afterwards is we quite often said to each other, you know what, we're doing this voluntarily. And then we would laugh and laugh and laugh. That was on the bad days. Because on the great days, of course, look at this, we're here. This is what we dreamed about. So we are continuing on a beautiful day again. And I think some of these days we actually may have had the main out and maybe even the Genoa, but they weren't used a lot. So one thing you don't have to worry about, you have to think about diesel, how much diesel you bring, but you don't need to worry about water. We don't have a water maker. And the thing is, in Patagonia, there'll always be a waterfall somewhere where you can get nice clear water. This is Håkon going into this little waterfall in Caletas Cascada and getting water. We just use 20-liter plastic, not buckets, but containers to take water to the boat. And we always had plenty of water. We didn't have to worry about that at all. So, yeah. So the next point was Puerto Natales. Now, we had read that if you anchor up outside the actual town, then you may drag. And another thing that may happen, and you'll see that in the later pictures, that you go in the morning in your dinghy, and in the afternoon, it's really windy and the waves are big, and it might be really hard to get back to your boat. So we went up to this, up in this little estero up to Puerto Consuelo, which was a very beautiful place. We're all surrounded by these black-necked swans, which we later on cursed, and I'll tell you why in a minute. But anyway, so we were there and had a nice anchorage. There's an estancia there with a German guy who established, and so we were there and we were like, okay, we would like to get into Puerto Natales, the actual town. And so we just went up to the road, and very soon somebody took us along and took us into town. No problem. Then we rented a car in there and brought it back the same way. So we get into town, and now there's like a cafe, there's shops. It's like, wow, this is amazing. It's a very nice little town. A lot of hikers come here. And so there's just about everything you can wish for. This animal over here to the left is, oh, I forgot the name. So this is an animal that German guy actually found, I guess maybe the skeleton of or something. So there's a cave somewhere where that one is. It's extinct. It's not something that exists anymore. There's quite a bit of touristy stuff in the town, a lot of shops, a lot of restaurants. We could actually go out and eat. And so we generally had a very nice time. We also decided to go to Torres del Paine, the national park. That is a really amazing national park that we could have spent. We'd been in our anchorage for like 4 days, and it'd been fine. The boat hadn't budged. So we decided, okay, we'll do an overnight trip into Torres del Paine. And we did. And so we get in there, and fairly soon inside the park, I see one of these guys. And it's like in the, it's in the family with I don't know, I can't remember things, with llamas, but it's not a llama. It's
Guanaco.
Guanaco, that's it, yeah. And so we see that. I'm like yelling at Håkon, stop, I gotta get a picture here. They're so hard to see. There's really few of them, and so we stop and I get a picture. And immediately around the next corner, there was like 20 of them, and a little later on, there was like 15 of them. There was lots of them. We hadn't really needed to stop like that to get a picture of it. So we stayed in a nice little hostel, which was on this lake with this beautiful view in the morning. And we enjoyed the birds and we enjoyed the park. It is a beautiful place and we'll probably go back there. We're going to Chile again in January, and we'll go here again because we only spent one overnight in there. This is the stanza of the German guy, and this out here to the left is where we actually moored. So as you can tell, it's a really beautiful area. This is the road out there. It's very long and you don't really want to walk it, but if a car comes back, they'll generally take you up. Well, then we got back to the anchorage and it's nice. I will say the first 4 days, it actually blew like up to 50 knots and the boat didn't budge. So now we're sitting in the boat in the afternoon and we're talking about that, okay, maybe we'll leave tomorrow and just sitting there enjoying it. All of a sudden, and we're thinking about going to bed. And all of a sudden, Håkon says, you know what? I think the boat is moving. So we do a quick fixes and yes, it's definitely moving. Oh, darn. It's now getting to be evening. So the boat started dragging. I will say it was 60 knots coming from the north, but still, I mean, we had been in 50 knots where it had moved, but now it moved. And there was just no way of getting purchase. Every time there's this 3 spots where we actually tried to anchor. And every time we got like a ton of seagrass from those, that's what those little blackneck swans were really enjoying. So all night long, we're just going all over those places. And as you can tell, it's a very narrow area. It is luckily sand out to the side if we should go aground, but it was really, really hard to try. So we spent the whole night doing that. And every time we thought we got the anchor down for a while, it lasted maybe half an hour and then we were moving again. And by this time, of course, we weren't both sleeping, but then the one that had gotten to sleep had to get up again and we had to try and find another place. So that was, we were not very happy about that. And that's the first and only time that we have actually dragged our anchor. We have a very big rock now that has done us very well everywhere. I don't know what happened, but we definitely plowed up that whole anchorage. So next day we're coming by Puerto Natales on our way out, and the little building in the middle with the blue roof, that's the Armada. So they call us up and say, I'm sorry, you can't leave. The port is closed. I'm like, what? No, it's closed. There's bad weather coming. And we had actually seen that there was maybe not so nice weather coming. So we were saying, well, you know, but this is a really bad anchorage. We want to go down to the next anchorage, Delano, and stay there. And so after a little back and forth and trying to tell them that we were a sailboat and the weather wasn't that bad for us, they said we could go on. You kind of do need these people's permission. And so we got down to Caleta Delano and it was nice and quiet with horses roaming on the beach, and we just stayed there. We only stayed there the night because that weather that we saw up in Puerto Natales, and that's also outside here, was going to turn into something a little more interesting. And so that's where we ended up in Caleta Desparecidas. And we are way in here to the right. Our boat is even further in. And this is Canal Perke, the one that you see going by here. There's a very strong current there. When you go in and out of that, you want to do it right. You want to do it with the current with you and not with the wind against you. So anyways, we tug up here into that little anchorage and tie the boat up, all 4 lines. And as you can tell, we have the trees around us that protect us from the billy wars, the strong winds that comes down the mountains. The weather forecast to the left is what they were forecasting. They were gust up to 80 knots, sea state 6 to 10 meters. That's of course not in Canal Kirke, that's further outside. But that also means there's going to be a lot of wind in there. And I forget how much wind it was. It was quite a bit. So we stayed there actually for 5 days. And And we saw really big ships going through Canal Kirker, and we saw that they even had trouble getting through there. And one was really getting taken by the current. And for a minute we thought, well, is he going to end up over here or what? But it worked. Of course, they do know what they're doing, but it is a very narrow exit in Canal Kirker going in towards Puerto Natales. So anyways, we had a nice time. There was a little beach even at low water. This is where Canal Kirker is. And so we could go ashore and explore it. It was a little bit hard to go up because, again, it's like a jungle. But we could at least walk around a little. And we had a lot of birds to look at. These are the steamer birds. And steamer birds, they don't fly. When they really want to go fast, they use their wings as a steamboat. And they just go. And it looks really funny, but I never managed to get a picture of them doing it or a video because they go really fast. They're very pretty to look at. And here's me trying to go ashore. And what you do when you go ashore is there's a lot of moss, and so sometimes you'll go into the knee in the moss, and sometimes there'll be other holes. And yeah, so you're just kind of careful to walk where it's okay. And here's another Caracas birds. So there's so much birds life there. Also the pescadores, Martin pescadores. So we had a lot of things to look at. We were there for 5 days. And then finally, well, actually, before I say that, so finally we managed to leave. And so we go to a little island, Caletas. Couldn't really get our anchor to stick there either. But so there was some fishermen over to the side. They said, oh, come on over here. You can tie up to us as long as you leave at 7 in the morning. And I said, oh, that's fine with us. No problem. So we tie up to them. And they told us they'd been there for 7 days due to weather. And they were a lot bigger ship than us. So I guess down there, the weather was even worse. And also, this is a point where we had to go a little bit north to get back to our track. And the wind was coming from the north, so we didn't want to go into too strong winds there either. But then after we got out of that, we got down to Canal Smythe. I had a very nice ride going south. And at this point, we're now getting very close to the Straits of Magellan. And we know there's bad weather coming, so we're like, should we take an anchorage here just before we go into the Magellan Strait, or should we go on to the next Caleta? And that's a corner. Let me see if I have a picture of it. Yeah, so you see here, that's Canal Smythe. See that corner there, how close it is to the Pacific? So that's a corner that's really difficult to get around. The weather might come in from outside. There may be a big swell, and so you want to take this corner with some caution. So we weren't too sure, but we figured, well, what the heck? We'll make a peek out. We wrote Jorge and asked him, and he said, yeah, well, stick your nose out and see what it does. So we stuck our nose out, and it was fine. So therefore, we hurried on to Caleta Mustin here, where we were going to spend some days. Right over here, actually, across from Caleta Mustin, there's another Caleta where Slocum was stuck for months due to bad weather. So it's not for fun. It can be dicey down there. This Caleta was, you go into one bay and then the next bay, and then you go further in. And so it was really easy to find a spot way in a tucked up corner. And we could even get ashore, or at least try climb around. But once you got up a little bit, then you could actually walk around. But getting up there was a little bit difficult, but you have to do something. So since we were there we were actually there for 7 days. So since we were there for that long, we got a little bored every so often. And I was like, oh, it's not raining now. Let's go ashore. And then, of course, before I got all the clothes on, it was raining. And yes, it was a little bit cold here. I think maybe 5 degrees Celsius, something like that. So this is where you see our mast sticking up there. We could have been tucked a little bit better in. We thought later we could have gotten a little bit more backed up, but we were actually fine. We had all 4 ropes out and we had the anchor. So we thought it was a good place. So all of a sudden when I'm up there looking, will the weather be good enough to go ashore? I say, oh, wow, there's a fishing boat. It's coming down here. Wow, amazing. Maybe they want to tuck up in here also. We didn't know there would have been lots of room. So anyways, they come down. They ask us if we want some fish and some centolla. That's the crab, the king crab. And we said, oh yes, that would be great. And what can we get you instead? So what they did was throw us these 5 giant crabs over on the boat and 2 fish. And then they left before I even had a chance to get a bottle of wine or get anything for them. They just yelled at us, 2 days, 2 more days, and you can sail. So they also knew they might have been tucked up some other nice place. It is cold and rainy there, as you can tell. This is on December 3rd. So anyways, for 2 days, we just completely gorged ourselves. Centollas are really, really good food. They taste really good. We did have to write to our friends and ask, how do you cook the darn things? And then I actually found a recipe in one of the guides we had. But they were really good. So finally, we could get going. The next thing we want to get by is Paso Tortuosa, which I think maybe translates something like Tortuous Pass. It was definitely one of those places where you didn't want to go against the current with the wind the other way. You didn't want to have wind over current there. We got it pretty good. And so it was a little bit busy. We saw whales there, but never close enough to actually be able to photograph them. But there were definitely several whales. The weather changed very fast. And this is where we got our first snow. It probably was around freezing right around then, but we had the tent up, so we were actually fairly snug. And we have a lot of clothes, lots of warm clothes on board. This is a pilot boat going the other way. The big ships will go outside when the weather is okay, and they'll go inside the Straits of Magellan when the weather is not so nice. And I guess this pilot boat is going against the current to meet one, and against the wind to meet one of these boats. This was where we started to see the albatrosses, and they're really fun to watch. They're very pretty and they're very gracious, and they dive around you, but they're really difficult to take a picture of. I did get a few, but it was hard. And then there was more skuas, which are kind of fun to watch when they take off, almost walking on water. And that gets us to Caletas Hidden. Over here, this cabo you see here, that's where you turn around if you want to go through the Strait of Magellan to go out to the Atlantic there. We didn't want to do that. It's sort of, it has a bad reputation of having a lot of current and a lot of wind and not very many good anchorages. And Punta Arenas, which is the town there, has no real harbor or marina. It's just an open roadstead, so it's not really a good place to go. So we hadn't really planned to go that way, but we did have to go down out towards the Pacific from here. So, and the weather was coming from the Pacific, so we decided to go into Caletas Hidden and stay a few days. Again, you sort of zigzag in of a narrow entrance, and then as you can see, here's Touché down in the left-hand corner, and we were very snug down there. Nice place where it's easy to get up on top and get to look over on the other side to the strait we were going to go down the next day. This is 2 nautical miles away and taken with the big camera. And as you can tell, there's waves out there, big waves. And when they're that big, when you see them from 2 miles away, I'm pretty sure that you don't really want to sail in them, especially if you have them against you. Anyways, we were snug in there and having a good time until the weather turned a little bit. And we could go ashore. We even saw a bee there, which surprised me. Lots of fauna and pretty place. So as you can see here, this is where Caleta Hidden is, right in this corner. And this is where the Magellan Strait goes out into the Atlantic. So we were going down here, almost down to the Pacific Ocean. This is why if the Pacific Ocean is turning swells in there and having the wind in there, it's really not a fun route to take. But the day we took it was fairly nice. There's some current there that we lucked out and got right. And then we came to Caleta Brecknock, which is absolutely one of the most beautiful caletas. There's a lot of beautiful caletas, and I do have a few that I would be very hard pressed to say which one I preferred. But there's some really nice ones. This is another place where I think we could have backed in more, but sometimes you don't really know what the depth of the water is. We were still fine. There's a lot of trees down here, so we are protected. Oh, I forgot to say, when we were in Caleta Mustin, we did get 80 knots a couple of times. One of our solar panels decided that it was going to go flying and pretend it was a windmill. It's really difficult. It was like basically blowing around in its cord. So it was really like, okay, watch your head and let's get big gloves on and catch this thing. And in one evening when we were eating dinner, it was basically, okay, oh, hold on to plates, because then the boat actually heeled over, even though we were safely tied up. That was probably the biggest weather we had down there. But anyways, this is Caleta Brecknock, and it is absolutely stunning. And this is also where we found out that we didn't have any more gas. That was a surprise. We actually thought we had an extra gas, but that turned out to be empty. And the gas bottle we had, we found out later that because the Chilean thing you put on top of the gas bottle is very close to the Danish, we thought they were the same, but they're not. There's a tiny little difference. And that's actually why it was probably leaking just a tiny, tiny little bit. So we were out of gas by here. And so thankfully it was easy to go ashore and to build a little fire and to cook our food there. Håkon doesn't seem way too pleased about it, but actually it tastes very good. I think this is where we ate the rest of the fish we got from the nice fishermen. It's just beautiful. And actually the weather outside was not quite as nice, but it was really nice in there. Of course, you go in a long, well, not a long way, but you go in a little way, and then you turn some corners, and then you're just fine. Again, getting water was very easy. This is one of the bigger waterfalls. And along that waterfall, the fisherman has actually tied several very big, thick lines so that you can hold on with one hand and then grab some water with the other hand. As we were sailing from there, I guess this Caracas was a little tired, and so he hitched a ride with us for a little while. So we come into this Caleta, and we wanted to go further in, but there was so much kelp, so that we couldn't really go much further in without getting completely tangled up in kelp. And we were wondering, what is this guy in there? From a long distance, it actually looked like a person. Close up, it was some kind of figure made out of some old fishing gear clothes and pointing at something. So we had to go in and see what he was pointing at. And this is one of the places where people put up signs with the boat names on. I guess that maybe they got tired of people putting them up in all kinds of places. So somebody sort of designated this place as a place that you could put up your little sign. I hadn't prepared one, so I had to get some paint out and a little piece of wood and managed to make a little sign that I could put up in there. Yeah, that was definitely a lot of kelp. So even though we were careful to stay outside the kelp, we thought we got so much kelp when we took up the anchor. There was like a ton of it. We had when we were in Panama, we met some people who had come from Patagonia, and they had this big long knife with very big teeth that they said, "We'll give this to you because you will need it for the kelp." And it was really nice to help cut off the kelp for that. So in the end, we gave it to somebody else we met in Uruguay. So they were going to Patagonia and they were going to need it there. This was another place that I was really looking forward to, Saint-Pierre. It's like 3 different fjords or estuaries going inside and ending in glaciers, all 3 of them. And so you're in Caleta Bolio, it's called, and this is the view you had from the anchorage. It doesn't get much better than that. And again, there was a nice beach. It was easy to go ashore and make a fire. And we had some coals on board that we also used for the cooking. And thankfully, in Puerto Natales, we had just bought a new thermos. That was much better than our old one. Our old one wouldn't really hold it warm for more than a couple of hours. This one, we boiled water when we were done cooking, and then we filled up the thermos and we would have nice hot water for tea the next morning. So that was a really good buy. So this is the glacier in the middle. And this is Glacier Nord. This is where we also met another boat, as you can maybe guess. Somebody took a picture of us. We took some pictures of them. We're fairly close to Puerto Williams now. And so there are boats that go from Puerto Williams and along this glacier alley, take tourists there and go back again. So so that's where we met this other boat that we later on met in Puerto Williams again. And so took pictures of each other. This is the anchorage, the Bolio anchorage, and it was just stunning there. I went for a kayaking ride there and really enjoyed it. We went up Caleta del Norte. That's also where we got photographed by that other boat. And the flora and fauna and land is really beautiful. And we had this gorgeous sunset at night where we were in that Caleta. The picture is a little bit fuzzy because it's taken when it's actually slightly dark. So the next Caleta would be Olja, that we had heard so much about. This is a really good Caleta. And actually, I thought it wasn't so good because it was so big, but it was protected, but it was just that it was so big. There wasn't like a little corner we could tuck into. So we wanted to go up that little river there, or that little creek that came from the glacier further in that we wanted to go see. But the current was really, really strong. So we couldn't really row against it, and the water wasn't very deep. So we decided, okay, we'll beach it and we'll walk there. And so, as you can tell, this is a place where there's been the beavers. And you can really tell there's been the beavers. They totally, completely messed up the forest there. I mean, and so we've tried to find a path going to this glacier, and we thought we were following a path, but sometimes I think it was actually a path that the animals had made, and sometimes maybe somebody had actually walked there. So we walked and walked. We tried to follow that creek, but couldn't really do that because that was too difficult to walk along. Then we walked further in, and at some point we're like, wonder how we get out of here, because now I'm not actually really sure we can get the same way back. We could sort of know that we would have to go what direction to go in. So anyways, I brought the drone, so I put that up to say, okay, the sea is that way. So that's the way we walked so that we could get back to the boat. That was an experience, but we never did make it into the glacier, which I actually really wanted to. So now we are in the what's called the glacier alley. Good. We can go by one glacier after another. This is Ventisquera, Italia. And again, you can see that it does not go all the way down to the water. It has retreated. And this one had retreated a lot. So instead, there was this big waterfall from all the melting water. We are actually now really closing in on what's called civilization. This over here is Ushuaia, that's in Argentina, and we are in we're here going into, we are in, um, I know what it's called, Canal Beagle. And when you are sailing here, you have to stick to your side. So we are still in Chile and we haven't checked out of Chile. So we have to stay on the Chilean side of this line here. And if you cross it for some reason, you will be called up on your VHF by the Argentine officials asking you if you have checked out of Chile and if you are in fact on your way to Ushuaia. You tell them, no, I'm sorry, I just crossed the line. There are also several checkpoints here from the Armada, the Chilean Armada, that you have to call. It basically can almost hear each other because they're so close. But so you just go in there, and this is where all of a sudden, I mean, we're sailing along a beautiful day, 32 knots, and all of a sudden 60 knots whips up, maybe 70, and the waves whip up, the winds whip up, and it's like we have like a handkerchief we have a triple reefed staysail, and we were just bowling along, having actually a great sail. It was a little bit too much right on the back, so we had to sort of go a little bit zigzag. And we'd heard about this great anchorage actually from Lars and Suzanne that they said was really good. But to go into that Caleta, we would have to make a very sharp right. And it was a very narrow entrance. So we decided in that weather, we really didn't want to do that. So we went on to the next Caleta, which is Caleta Buersheim. And anyways, this is, you can see the tower from the airport. And this is one of the boats going against the waves and the wind. They were actually tacking, even though they were a big motorboat. Saw lots of sea lions lying around. And finally, we made it into Puerto Williams, where you tie up to McKelvey. And this was really nice. This is how nice it is to have friends in places. So we get in there, and there's like 3 people ready to take our lines because they'd actually heard what time we were expected. Guess who told them that? Guess Jorge. Thank you. And not only that, they also had a bottle of gas ready for us because they also knew we were out of gas. So that was really a very, very nice welcome. In McKelvey, there's all these flags hanging up from all the boats who have been there. And of course, we had to hang up our flag, both our OCC flag and our Danish Association flag. And we were actually not very many people there. So we were just a few people and a few boats that decided to we spent Christmas and New Year's together, having a good time. This guy over here in this picture, he was going to row to Antarctica later on. And here you see, this is Touché right here in the middle. So you have these 3 rows of boats. You lie outside each other, and then you walk across all the other boats to get into McKelvey, where the toilet and the bath is, and to get ashore. And then in the morning, on the WhatsApp group, somebody tells you, okay, I would like to leave today. And then maybe number 3 in the first row or number 2 in the middle row. So then we did what I call boat Tetris. We had to move the boats around. And it was really kind of like when you're new there, you're like, shoot, what do we do? But you just listen to the ones who have been there for a long time. They know exactly what to do. They tell you, okay, you just go a little forward now, then you do this, then you do that. You follow what they say and you're fine. And this is what it looks from above. That's actually not while we are there, but just so you can see sort of what it's like. Then we finally walked up to Cerro Bandana, and with a beautiful view over Puerto Williams, the town, and Argentina on the other side. And finally, we made it to Cape Horn. Yeah, I actually think I've probably spent way too much time.
No, I don't think so.
Because I actually have a small video from when we went around Cape Horn.
Okay, do you want to play your video? And I'm going to ask people to put their hand up if they want to come in and ask a question in person. So electronic hand up, and I'll bring you in once Judith's video's finished playing. We've got some questions on the chat line too, Judith. So
Yes, I saw that. Just let me know if it's not in, if we don't have enough time. It's about 6 minutes.
I think we're good. So, I mean,
Okay,
we're unlimited on the Zoom time. You still have an audience of 60 people. So
okay, so
let's go for the video and get the hands up. There's some questions, some hands already gone up. So let's go video first.
Okay, so there we go.
In South Australia I was born, heave away, all the way. South Australia, round Cape Horn, we're bound for South Australia. All the way, you're rolling king, heave away, all the way, all the way. You'll hear me sing, we're bound for South Australia. If ever you've been around Cape Horn, heave away, all the way. You wish to God you'd never been born. We're bound for South Australia. All the way, you're rolling king, heave away, all the way, all the way. You'll hear me sing, we're bound for South Australia. Essequibo River is a cleaner river, so Baditana we are somebody, oh. Essequibo River is a cleaner river, so Baditana we are somebody, oh. Somebody, oh, somebody, oh. Baditana we are somebody, oh. Essequibo's captain is a king of captains, oh. Baditana we are somebody, oh. Essequibo's captain is a king of captains, oh. Baditana we are somebody, oh. Somebody, oh, somebody, oh. Baditana we are somebody, oh. The boots and clothes are rolling on. Go down, yellow and red roses. Go down, it's mighty crafty around Cape Horn. Go down, ye blood red roses, go down. Oh, ye pinks and posies, go down, ye blood red roses, go down. Just one more pull and that'll do. Go down, ye blood red roses, go down. For here's a boys to pull her through. Go down, ye blood red roses, go down. Oh, ye pinks and posies, go down, ye blood red roses, go down. Well, it's a Sally Rocket, holler away, on me favorite jacket, holler away, and then she lost a ticket, holler away, to me Holly, hi-oh, holler away, little Nancy Dawson, holler away, ran off with the parson, holler away, now she's got a little bosun, holler away, to me Holly, hi-ho, holler away, oh, you fighty cocks now, holler away, go down and get your grog now, holler away, for we have wept enough now, holler away, to me Holly, hi-ho, holler away, to me Holly, hi-ho, holler away, holler away.
Let me just interrupt you. Here you can see what we got here was we got 3 knots undercurrent and 40 to 50 knots headwind. We would definitely get nowhere. We're trying to track and we did, as you can see, cross the line into Argentina just a tiny little bit, and they called us up and we said, we're very sorry, we're just trying to get anywhere. Anyways, we decided we're not going to get anywhere while we have that current and that wind, so we'll just turn back to the Caleta behind us.
Well done, Judith. Thank you very, very much indeed. What an amazing trip.
So let me just say that the woman who's with us is this Argentinian who actually lives in Puerto Williams.
Okay.
And we met her, I think, for New Year's Eve, and then we also met her because she also washes clothes for the sailors and stuff like that. So we're talking, and she says, you know, I've been here for 4 years and I still haven't been to the Horn. So I'm kind of funny like that. So I said, oh, you come with us, come along. So she came with us. Turned out she was vegetarian. So we were like, gee, we don't know how to make vegetarian food. She said, okay, I'll take my own food. I'll make my own. She actually made food for all of us for the whole trip. So that was really nice.
Very good.
And then we were planning to stay at Anchorage, some of the islands out near the Horn, but the weather forecast was not looking very good. So we decided to go back. And being that we decided to go back, she had a lot of vegetables left over that we then gave to the family out at the Lighthouse, which was very, very popular. And finally, the day we did this was on the 22nd of December, the longest day of the year. So
fantastic. You're pretty lucky to get ashore at the Lighthouse. What percentage of boats actually managed to do that?
Very, very small, I'm told. It's not very easy to get up there.
Yeah. Great, Judith. Thank you very much. We've got some questions. Tim.
Yeah.
Tim, good. Do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, hi. Simon, can you hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear, Tim. Go ahead.
Okay, cool. Is my camera meant to turn on or not? Just
sorry, no, it won't come on.
No, okay.
So,
okay, fine.
Yeah.
Cool. Hey, Judith, how you doing?
Good. How are you? It's good to hear you and not see you.
Yeah. Well, we haven't chatted for what, about a year now on chat. But anyway, right, I'll cut to the chase. Judith, you have a son, right, Derek?
Yes, I do.
Okay. I'm not going to ask for your opinion on here, so I'm going to ask you to go back in time. Given what you know now after sailing in Patagonia, if we say, let's assume your son was 5 years old, and given what you know now, would you do that trip with a 5-year-old on board, your son?
I wouldn't with my son because he's handicapped severely. So I wouldn't do it with him. I think if I was used to sailing with my child and he had been sailing a lot with us, I would. We met in Svalbard. We met this French family who had also been around the Horn, and they had 3 small children with them. I think it can be done. You just have to be patient and stay in Caletas when the weather looks crappy and just enjoy yourself. They might get a little bit bored because some places it is hard to go ashore, but other than that, yeah, I think I would. If the child was used to sailing.
Okay,
cool. I appreciate that honest opinion. Simon, how many more questions can I have?
Well, if Judith goes, nobody else has got their hand up to come in and speak, but Judith, there's lots of questions on the chat.
Okay.
There's questions about from Neil McCubin about the dimensions of your shorelines, the size of your Rockner anchor, what type of heating have you got? Do you want to just address those and ask anybody else to put their hand up if they want to come in and talk? If not, we'll go back to Tim.
Yeah, so we have a Webasto heater, and we had actually looked into getting a better heater, getting maybe like a bus type heater or a heater off the engine and stuff like that. In the end, I can't really remember why we didn't do that, but I wouldn't say it was bad, but I would have liked to have had better heater, and I would have liked to have either a Reflex or the other one, Dickinson. That would have been really nice to have, and that was actually what kept us from going to Cape Horn, from Antarctica, because we just didn't think we had a good enough heater on board. Yeah, so that's another thing for you, Tim. Good, if you're taking the child, just make sure you have lots of warm clothes and nice heat in your boat. The Rockner is 33 kilos, I think.
Wow, that's a big anchor for a 38-foot boat.
Yeah, it's like 2 sizes up.
Yeah.
And then we have 10 millimeter chain. We have 80 meter chain. So that works well. As to ropes, we had 4 pieces of rope of 100, well, actually 110 meters each, because those round rope things came in 220 meters. So we just cut them in two of them, and then we coiled them up in those baskets.
And there were polyester floating ropes, presumably, were they?
Floating ropes, yes, absolutely. Yeah. And so a good piece of advice is when you tie your knots, tie it so you can reach it at low water from the water, so you don't have to climb up on slippery rocks to the tree that you got it around. Don't ask me how I know.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Paso Tama is the place entering Magellan from Canals Smythe, and it can be tricky, I was told. And I heard about other people who had less luck than we did. Yeah. What else do we have? What diameter rope did we have? I think it was 14 or 16 millimeters. I asked around what would be the right rope for the weight of our boat, and that's what I got, and it worked fine. We weren't ever worried that it would break. We did one place actually have to cut it off because the knot we had been straightening it so much that there was just no way we could get the knot up.
So Judith, you get gusts to 80 knots, but what was the highest sustained wind speed, would you say you had?
That was probably 60.
Wow, gosh. That's a lot of wind.
That was that wonderful night where we dragged anchor.
Yeah. So the kelp only really became a problem the further south you went. You didn't mention the kelp in the first
no, in the
first
north
part of your talk.
you get it in the north too, but it's worse in the south. Absolutely, yes.
And did you carry a knife to cut the kelp off?
Yeah, we had this big knife, big knife that we got from some other sailors in Panama. Yeah. They said we would need it when we got there, and they were right. So a big knife, a good saw, so that you can saw it over. They can be up to 80 meters long.
Yeah,
And
and
it's
presumably the holding is much worse in the kelp.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Oh yes.
We get that a lot in Scotland, as you know. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yes, we have tried that as well. And in Svalbard actually also.
So we'll go back to Tim for now. He's got his hand up and he's got his microphone ready to go again. So, and then there's a couple of more questions on the chat. So Tim, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll stick on the kelp. So when an OCC member, this is before I was an OCC member, kindly helped me spec my boat. And we on board the boat when we bought it was this massive fisherman's anchor, and he said, "Oh, keep that because one day you'll like it for kelp." Judith, do you have a fisherman's anchor, and would you recommend us hanging on to it for kelpie anchorages? It's just one of those things that clogs up the bilge at the moment.
Yes, we don't have one. We have a CQR anchor that came with the boat, and that's clogging up our what's it called? Our
Lazarette?
Yeah, lacerets, and we've never ever needed it, never used it, but we still don't want to get rid of it just in case. We actually just have one anchor in front, and we had considered whether we should have two anchors, but being that you tie up if the weather is going to be bad or if you're in a not so good anchorage, we didn't feel it was necessary to have two heavy anchors in front.
Okay. I also joined the chat 10 minutes late. Did you talk about charts before that? What are you using for charts? How accurate were they? And anything?
Yeah, we used Navionics on an iPad that we have in a waterproof holder, and they were fairly accurate. There were some places in northern Patagonia. There was one place we went to, Devil something, and it said in the chart said there was only a half-meter depth, but other people told us, oh, it's at least 11 meters, so you can fine go through. Turned out the least depth we saw in that place was 28 meters, except where we anchored it was 5 meters. But so they are not totally accurate. They're fairly accurate, I would say. You do have to just look around you. I don't know. That's all you can do. We were fairly happy with those. We didn't feel like we should have had some. We did have a backup, I think, of CMAP or something else, but we never used it. And also we had backups on our phones, on a tablet, and also we had OpenCPN. OpenCPN was hugely inaccurate.
Okay.
We were sailing over land all over the place.
Okay, I'll make a note of that. One for the water. So you were taking your jerry cans to the waterfalls and filling up.
Yeah.
Had you ever, was it like in Norway? Is it possible to get the bow quite close so you could just take a hose and a funnel and just fill your tank up directly? Because it feels, a 20-kilo jerry is pretty heavy. Well, it's 20 kilos.
Yeah. No, it would have been nice to have a long hose with a funnel, but it was actually fine to get the bow close enough. And some places it was a dinghy that you went in, so we didn't feel like we should have had something else. Okay. I did think it might have been nice to have a long hose with a funnel. You can actually make a funnel just from an old 2-liter soda bottle or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Few more questions or statements.
Yeah, I'll just say to what Håkon is saying, the story about the fishing boats. I mean, the Chileans are endlessly nice and generous. We only met friendly people. Even when we messed up with the Armada one day, we kind of forgot to check out of Puerto Natales. We were supposed to go by the office. We kind of forgot that. And I mean, we forgot it. It was because we were really anxious to get out of there because of that. So that worked out in the end. So we had absolutely no problem. And we didn't meet a lot of fishermen, but we heard from other people that, yeah, they will definitely share your catch with you at any time. So very nice. Yeah. We have some more, I think.
Yeah, there was a few more flowing in there.
Yeah, and Tim, you're right. Heat off the engine would have been so nice. I should have done it.
Yeah, we did that. I did that just before we set off to Patagonia, Norway in March to go skiing. And last minute, I saw online that a matrix heater you could buy for like 90 quid. And I mean, it's one of those boat jobs that you think is going to take you ages, and it was the completely opposite. I think I installed it in an hour, and it just pumps out really hot heat when the engine's going.
Yeah, I really wish we had done that. That would have been nice. So Lester Gabriel is asking, lasers and J24s at Puerto Williams. I didn't say much about that. There's actually a sailing school there for children, which is completely free, and there's everything they need. There's dry suits and wetsuits, and there's all these boats that they can sail in, and we saw them sail in them, and they're really good. And I just think it's amazing the skills they'll have learning to sail in those waters in the cold. And we saw them jump in the water and swim, I guess, for practice. So they were really, really, it's an amazing sailing school that we went over and saw it. And I'm just really pleased to see that the local kids have something like that where they can learn to sail. They'll be the ones going to Antarctica and God knows where when they grow up, I'm sure.
For sure. Question from Neil McCubbin's got his microphone live.
Oh, hi, Neil.
To Lars Hellman after Neil. So Neil, go ahead.
Hi, more of a comment, Tim, on the heater off the engine. I'd recommend that for any boat north of Gibraltar.
Okay.
It's not just, I mean, it's so simple until it'll go wrong. I mean, your Eberspracher and Webasto are great, but if they go wrong, they're pretty hard to fix. Off the engine, it's so simple. It took me more than an hour to install it, but it's still simple.
Maybe we should get it before going to Greenland.
Yeah, definitely should. And especially in places like Norway where you motor a lot, you've always got heat.
Yeah, no, I know.
And it's really recommended. They should be standard in boats. When you look at the fancy gadgets in boats, and they don't do that, anything in the colder water should have it.
Yeah, especially when you have.
Thanks very much. Good presentation, Judith.
Thank you, Neil, and say hello to Helen for me. So somebody asked me about insurance, and this was kind of interesting. So we have Pantaneous. And to start off with, when we left Panama, they said they would insure us down to 50 degrees south. So I asked them, okay, have you heard of a canal somewhere that I haven't heard of that you can get across South America at 50 degrees south? Of course they hadn't. So then they, after a little consideration in a few days, they said they would insure us down to the Strait of Magellan. So I said, okay. And then I decided, okay, when we get there, we'll just do the rest of it on no insurance, because we really didn't want to go through Magellan. So then, as the last anchorage we were in the north, I wrote them and said, so when we get to 50 degrees north, I have somebody else who will insure us. Do I just write you? Then we don't pay for you anymore. We get on the other insurance, and then we can maybe go back on yours when we get to the other side to 50 degrees. And he was like, let me just get back to you. So and I told him, I said, I don't want to go through Strait of Magellan because it's actually not a very nice strait to go through for a sailboat. I'd much rather do Canal Beagle, much nicer. And I definitely want to go around Cape Horn. And then if we had gone to Antarctica, we would have gone that maybe without insurance, I'm not sure. We have third party. But so anyway, so then they decided, okay, we'll insure you down to around the Horn. So you can talk to them, but they're not very happy about it, I guess. Yeah.
So we've got Lars can open his microphone, and there's a written question in from Jessie Schumacher, but I've asked her to open their microphone, so hopefully they'll come in and ask it directly. Lars, do you want to go ahead?
He's still muted. Lars, how's your leg? And you have to unmute. Oh, here's Jessie coming in.
Hi, Judith.
Hi, Jessie. How are you doing?
Hey. Yeah, good. Thanks for doing the talk. I enjoy every time you give a talk.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm just curious if there's like kind of anything else. Of course, I have the same boat as you, so If there's anything else you would kind of set up differently, it sounds like you got more high latitude and heavy weather sailing in your future. Anything else you think, changes you would make kind of going forward or looking back based on what you've done?
No, not really. Just maybe get that heater off the engine. I think that would make things very nice.
Sure.
But that's about it. You do need we have a nice cockpit enclosure, and I'd really advise to have that, because that makes for a whole extra room where you can dry clothes, and yeah,
Sure.
So we were very happy we have one.
And what sort of wind speed would you be happy keeping that up in, Judith?
We had it up in that anchorage where we saw 80 knots.
Wow.
And that's where
Wow.
the solar panel decided to take a flight.
Yeah.
But so actually I wouldn't sail with it in that speed. Basically, I would like to sail in that speed. The elastics got a little weak at the end.
Sorry, I just muted Neil there. Go ahead, Judith.
Yeah, so we sailed with it some days that were really cold, but I don't think we sailed with it more than maybe 40, 50 knots.
Wow, still a lot of wind for a lot of windage, and presumably when you've got 4 points ashore, the wind isn't always coming off the bow. Presumably, at times you've got crosswinds or willy wars coming down. So
that's why when we were in one anchorage, we were actually having to hold on to plates and everything, because all of a sudden the boat was heeling over. But yeah, it was fine.
Jesse, have you got any more questions before we go to Lars? Lars, I think, can open his microphone if he wants to. But anything else from Jesse?
No, just looking forward to hearing about the future adventures, especially like Greenland and everything. That sounds really exciting. So thanks again for the talk.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks for your question. Lars, you've got your microphone going this time. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think I did it the opposite way before, so that's why I got sort of cut out. So anyway, so hi Judith, nice to see your story. We was, like you said, we met, and you were going one way and we did go the other way. I just had a quick comment regarding the sailing school down there. The name is Sedena, or it used to be. Jorge, if he's still online, he can probably fill in on this much better than I do. But unfortunately, that sailing school has now it's not functioned anymore, because the sponsor, which is one of Chile's richest persons, philanthropist, he decided not to sponsor that anymore. So the whole arrangement down there is now idle, which is very, very sad, because it was an amazing place. You probably were at the house as well and had a nice barbecue, and it's fantastic, but it's not functioning anymore.
Oh, I'm really sorry to hear that. I didn't know that, because that really was an amazing place. Wow, I hope they get somebody else to step in.
Yeah, because it really kept that whole village, especially the kids, going. A lot of people were engaged, and the kids were out sailing more or less every day. They had English studies in the evenings for the kids, and even some adults that wanted to do English, and a lot of education. But it's all gone now. I don't know if Jorge is still there, if we can fill in on that. But I was told that by the port officer. Hang on, what's his name again? Lalo.
Lalo.
Yeah, because he was highly engaged in that as well, on top of being a port officer for OCC, but he has told me that the whole thing is down the tubes.
Oh, so sad to hear that.
Yeah, they're trying to revive it locally, but
Okay.
I don't know if they've been successful on that.
Oh, that's so sad, because that was such a nice thing. Nice place, nice. The kids really enjoyed it. Yeah, I really hope it comes back.
Wow, Judith, I think you've answered most people's questions. You've been talking for nearly 2 hours, so I think we've had our money's worth. So thank you very, very much indeed. Great talk, beautifully prepared, beautifully presented, and much appreciated. There were well over 60 connections online at the top. We've dropped down. We've dropped down to 38 now, but good on them for hanging on for 2 hours, and great feedback on the chat, which I will share with you anyway.
Thank you.
I'm not quite sure when I'll be able to post up the recording because we're actually in the Lake District at the moment, but it will go onto the OCC webinar site in the next few days, so it can be seen by those people that couldn't tune in. All those
Only ones who
people,
are eating turkey today.
all those people stuffing their faces with turkey in America, so they need to get tuned in and get listening. Great talk, and I'm just so impressed with you sailing double-handed in winds of 50 to 80 knots. I just
We didn't sail in 80 knots. We didn't sail in 80 knots.
well, whatever. You still had to put up with it in the anchorage. So fantastic story, and what an inspiring place to go. And so few boats there. Very, very. Your anchorages were deserted, weren't they? How many boats do you think you encountered on recreational sailboats?
I know
did you
how many
encounter?
we encountered. We encountered 2.
Wow. What, 2 in like 4 months or whatever the total duration?
I think on AIS I saw one, another one, but I never saw it in real life, so I don't really know where it hid. But I did see another one. But that's it. That was it. Until we got close to Ushuaia and Canal Beagle. That's where we then started to see other boats.
Yeah.
But on
Wow.
the whole trip, if we count those, I think we saw 3 boats after that.
That's
So
amazing. Yeah. But
yeah.
quite a lot of local boats, quite a lot of fishing boats, and
There's a ferry actually. There's a ferry you can take.
it goes from Puerto Natales back up to Puerto Montt, doesn't it?
Yeah, and also one from I think Ushuaia to maybe from Ushuaia to Punta Arenas. There's also one. So yeah. And yeah, we were really, really lucky to get ashore at the Horn. I just couldn't believe our luck. But I don't know if you could see in the pictures, there was actually a fog was rolling in.
Right.
I think if we had been at the Horn 2 hours later, we might not have been able to see it.
Yeah.
So we lucked out big time.
Yeah, very good. Super. Thank you very much. I will be in touch with I'll send you the chat line. I'll send you the people that dialed in. So if you want to connect with them directly, of course, please do that. And thank you very much. Next week, same time, same place. So
yeah, definitely.
Simon, can I just say one more thing?
Oh yeah, go on, Lars. Was that you? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it was me. Sorry about pitching in here, but I just can't help myself. If anyone is interested in doing the same journey again on your laptop computer, we just released 3 movies, and one other is in the process of doing the same journey, but in the opposite way and during the winter. So that's on our YouTube channel right now.
Yeah, there's a boat at the moment doing it, a French boat. Also just 2 people, and they're going south to north. And they're doing some amazing videos. So that's also one. And yeah, and if anybody wants to see our track, you can go in on Predict Wind and see it. I can send the link if that might be of interest.
Tim's come back online there. Tim, go ahead.
Yep.
I was just going to say, just pitch in there, if anybody knows anybody that's done this in Southern Hemisphere summer with children on board, then I'd be interested to be hooked up with them so we can ask them questions. That would be great.
Pretty sure the OCC members can't remember the name of the boat, but the Schwartzes did that a while ago, I think.
Oh yeah, they did.
Yeah.
Zephyrus. They did that. Oh, and Jorge, the French boat is Tupaya, not Tepaya. Sorry to correct you, but it's Tupaya.
Okay, cool. I'm going to reach out to you separately anyway, Judith, to have a chat. So I'll write that down then. And
there was a British couple as well who were down there with kids on board.
Yeah, that's
a year or 2 ago, and the name will come back to me, Tim. And I'll drop you a line about it in due course. But yeah, no excuse to not go down there with kids. So
you just have to do it slightly different, which I'm sure you have to do anyway when you sail with children.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you, guys.
Great. Signing off. Judith, thank you very much. You've talked.
Thank you very much, Simon.
And yeah, see you next week. Good night. Good night.
Right. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye, Judith.
Bye.
Bye, Simon.
Yeah, bye-bye, guys. Bye.
Bye.